Right, let's get started then for today. I'm sure that you've all had a chance to go home and look at the samples that I sent to you, and also have a look at the AP rubric and look at your own essays, measure up against what we're going to talk about today. So just to remind you very quickly, rules of engagement. Every single student today must engage constructively. Now, in some of the other Harkness discussions I've done with other students at the school, what I've noticed is some students talk once for like 15 seconds and then think, oh, okay, that's going to be good enough. Okay, you should try to be contributing to this lesson on a consistent basis. Now, I know that there is 18 of us in the class today, and if all 18 of us speak for 2 minutes, we're basically going to, that's our maximum amount of time. So I am aware of that, I am being flexible, but just try to contribute on a consistent basis. Remember, I'm going to be taking notes in the front. Students should refer to each other by name. Oh, I really agree with what Victor said about sample 3 being the best sample because it has the best topics and the best structure. However, in my essay, I thought that if it was chosen to become a sample, I thought that my essay would have been much, much, much better than Rex's, because when I looked at Rex's essay, he didn't have enough linking words. Okay, so mention each other by name, or you could ask questions by name. Okay, this is what I thought. What do you think, Jerry? Students should refer to the sample text as well as their own essays. Students should make notes and continuously revise their own essay during discussion. Remember, it's not a competition. This is a class discussion, and the success of this discussion relies on teamwork. Okay, so if I hear some people speaking sort of too much or some people not speaking enough, it's going to affect your class grade. So you should encourage each other to speak. Time limit, 30 minutes. I have made allowances to go over just a little bit if the discussion is going well. Okay, you'll see on the screen here I've got a pink slide, a green slide, and an orange slide. I've sort of broken it up into 10-minute segments. It's just approximate. It depends on you guys and how your discussion wants to move forward. So this will just be a suggestion. When you see the screen move to the green slide and then to the orange slide, perhaps it's time to move the discussion forward. The last slide is about the AP rubric. The green slide is about the structure, and the pink slide is about the topics that were chosen. All right, any questions? Are we ready to go? All right, so let me get a pen. Great, so keep an eye on the time. And let us see who is brave enough to start.
So let's start with the first sample. Do you think we
Don't necessarily have to stick to the structure on the board. If someone wants to start with the first sample, that's more than okay.
So the first sample topics are heliocentric theory, which is a theory that the sun is just in the middle of the whole universe, and the Lobar-Chevsky geometry, which focus on
it's just a new theory based on
a curved space.
So what do we think about the actually according to the AP rubric, what do we think about first from the beginning of the paragraph? Can sample one get the first point for thesis statement.
Yeah, I think that according to the rubric, it can definitely foresee the gassy part of the thesis statement, but the real problem of this essay is that for its two main paragraphs, they are actually talking about the same topic. It's all about how the people's trying and attempts in unknown technology areas help the society to and technology to progress.
So I kind of agree with David's idea. So I think the introduction did pretty well. Things talked about both sides of risk could be taken and consequences of the risks. However, and does not really appear in a body paragraph. It does not really tell what the risk is about and what the possible consequences is. It basically focuses only on the story of people developing things instead of bringing out the idea of risk. So that's what I think the problem is.
Yeah, I agree because in the introduction it mentions that the benefits of embracing the unknown exceeds its drawbacks. So thinking the main body paragraph is supposed to introduce what's the actual benefits of proposing the heliocentric theory, and the risk, of course, was that like the church was in control of education at that time, and they believe the geocentric theory was actually the true, was correct. I mean, so when Copernicus proposed the heliocentric theory, he was actually in risk of being like executed. So I think those details could be written, and yeah.
And moreover, I think actually according to the rubric, I think for the main paragraph in the sample one, it gives many evidence, but it is lack of some reasoning, because we can see most of the main paragraph is just facts, the evidence, but there is no sufficient reasoning to illustrate the thesis that in the body paragraph.
Yes, I agree with Steve on this point because, especially in the first body paragraph, the sample one essay did not specifically talk about how the advanced exploration of Copernicus prompts has helped the human being step forward into the unknown. It just simply mentioned that it advanced the humanity a step further towards the truth of the universe, but later it did not continue to talk about the benefit that the theory bring to human society, and it just keeps like trying to manifest that this is a bold attempt and emphasize it. So I think sample one could display more benefits that stepping into unknown could bring to human society in order to make it more convincing.
Yeah, I agree, but I think in the next paragraph, the author he mentions more like benefits, like through his theory, the mathematicians start to working out their prejudice, and I think that is to promote his individual success to the improvement of all over the world.
Yeah, and I want to add that in the introduction part, comparing to other samples, sample one missed the part despite, even though, or although, and this is bad because it will miss the point of sophistication.
Yeah, I agree with your opinion because actually, with you said there's lack of the despite, and as you talk about the sophistication point, I think there's some like simple grammar mistakes actually in the sample one, like from the first sentence there's explore the unknown, or like in the main body paragraph, the paragraph one, like even he did not know or will, and next, what effect will the unknown has on scientific field. So I think the sample one may not get the sophistication point.
I
agree with Steve, and I compare the sample one with my own essay. And it is similar that my first paragraph write about the advancement in the field of physics. And I found that I also only include the evidence like the sample one, but lacked a lot of reasonings and like a lot of risk and benefits. I didn't state them really clearly. So that's a point I need to make up.
And I think the introduction of sample one is much like what we used in the TOEFL writing. Because it just talk about some backgrounds, and then it is widely debated, and then the thesis statement, well, you know, he didn't use the structure that we are supposed to use in APE argumentative essay.
Well, I don't think we must use the fixed structure like despite or and then what. Like in the sample, I actually talked about the counter argument in its first paragraph. Like you can notice that it also leaves some irreparable destruction on Earth, or it is widely debated. So the author actually has mentioned that counter argument in his introduction, and he also makes its perspective clear by the overall the benefits of embracing the unknown exceeds its drawbacks. So the author actually made a clear standpoint in the introduction. So I don't think the structure is quite much a big problem for this.
I don't agree with your idea because I think in sample A, it says that it is widely debated whether people should be encouraged to explore new things. It just makes the topic too broad. I mean, the author hasn't directly point out what the counter argument is, and I mean, this is not a good example of counter argument.
It's just like what Frank said. The thesis like that is just too broad and too general to make an introduction for the argumentative essay.
I think that only the background information, which there may be no limit for the range of it. So I just think that it's more when we include the counter argument, it will be okay.
Well, I think we have focused too much on sample one. Maybe we should move a little bit forward. And I think it's good for us to talk about some good samples that we can learn from, such as I think sample 4 just did a good idea, a good job, since it talked about both in the economics part and some history and politics aspects in order to prove its point. And also I think its explanation and some reasoning is very convincing, just like it used much of the how to say some history or evidences. Yes. And it's I also think in each paragraph it did a good job in the counter argument that used little words but to create a very strong point that supports its topic.
Yeah, I agree with David's statement about the sample 4 body paragraph because from the first body paragraph it talks about the Japan's industrialization in the 1900s, and it has very sufficient evidence and reasoning from the sentence of this example illustrate how much a society can benefit from taking the risk to industrialize, and all afterwards are the body of reasoning, and there is very cogent concessions from the granted, and it gives us a very good example how to write a body paragraph.
I agree with Ivan's idea and the standard idea. So, like the
for the author to analyze his points and prove his statement. Yes, and it explains very well. It just after discussing the examples, it just focused on the benefits of that revolution or something, and then the risk of it, possible risk of it, and what it brings to the society. So the idea is quite clear for this essay.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I need to make additional points because he or she not only mentions the risk and benefits, but also like combines them together and measures the net effect of it. Because in the major part of this paragraph, he or she probably writes majority that's about the benefits, and in the end he says, the author says, the Japanese festival still play a key role in the lives of Japanese. So this proves that the loss of traditional culture is like minor part compared to like more influential industrialization, and probably we can argue this and like make a measurement between the loss and the gain.
I would like to pay attention to the total words of it, since it is about 1,000 words, and I think that in the real AP exam we will not have so much time to just simply focus on the argumentative essay. So I think that it should give it some sentences which is not quite closely connected to the thesis.
Yeah, I agree, and I think sample 2 had the same problem. In the first and second body paragraph, I think the author just explains too much about the examples, but it may not necessarily.
Sorry, it's sample 3 or sample 2?
Sample 2.
I do agree with Timmy. Since both sample 2 and sample 3 discuss the GMOs, I think the sample 3 clearly points out what is GMOs and how it leads to the progress of the society. However, sample 2 mentions a lot about the agriculture revolution. I think if the author wants to talks about the technology's improvement, maybe there is no need for the author to talk too much background.
Yes, I agree with Nicole. In the sample 2, it focuses too much on the personal experience of the person who invented GMO, the Norman. And it's kind of like his biography. Instead of analysis how he take risk or how he valued the benefit or the possible negative effect of applying GMO to the general crops for the population. It may not be suitable to use like 100 words to describe what he has been through, where he had been to invent this, so I think it's kind of a waste of language and time to do this.
I think there are some problems in the counter-argument of this paragraph, since it first says GMOs are not, some people argue that the GMOs are not safe, but later it said it was proved that it is totally safe for humans. It's like, after all, it shows that like GMO is totally good, and there are nothing like counter-argument. So I don't think this kind of counter-argument is useful.
He used his science, maybe his counter-argument, just that maybe people are disagree with him, so he has to prove it himself.
But it later said it was proved that it is totally safe. I think it's just too obvious.
Yes.
Well, besides my agreement with to Neil's point, I also need to make some other. I also need to talk about other drawbacks of sample 2. It's just like the point is in the first main paragraph. It's just totally. It's just almost not talking about about the GMF in its evidence. Like it's talking about the 1900 British agricultural revolution, which is just like to improve those traditional agricultural ways, and also it's mentioned the Norman Warnock who use the hybrid technology to create the high production crops, and there's no relation to the GMF. I think maybe